What if he jumped off of that ledge in the back? Maybe they were interrupted, coming there for a hit or something along those lines.
And here we go.
Welcome to the freak show, the best in town.
I'm going to see how this goes, and then hopefully we can do this very regularly. It'd actually be cool to have a segment of every stream of this. Type of one if you think that would be fun. I think that would be fun.
Wow.
With that being said, our first ever Hive Mind call-in is about to be Bourbon Santa, so I'm going to add him to the stage. Bourbon Santa, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you loud and clear. How's it going, Birdie? All right, so my thoughts on this case are very limited by some of the things that we know for a fact. We know for a fact that national security is involved in this case. We know that the U.S. Marshal showed up on scene. We know the FBI is involved in a cover-up. Now, none of the local corruption of Idaho, of Moscow, explains the federal government getting involved and going along with it. For there to be national security implications, we've got to be talking stuff crossing the border, human trafficking, drugs, cartel, whatever. And then the marshals being involved tells me, hey, we're looking at witness protection here. That's who runs witness protection is U.S. Marshal Service. So I think that what we're looking at is an exfiltration of undercover assets or informants. And I think maybe the guys who ended up in the hospital, the one with the broken legs, where they called the FBI, the injuries didn't match a car accident. What if he jumped off of that ledge in the back? Maybe they were interrupted, coming there for a hit or something along those lines.
I've never thought of that. What if the leg injuries were because he jumped?
Yep, off that ledge in the back. What if they were interrupted in the middle of showing up there? Maybe there was protection in the house. Maybe the undercover car showed up and interrupted. And then the person who was taken by the police to the hospital and then was violent. What if it was a 2-man hit squad? And then they brought in Koberger to be the fall guy. Maybe he was another informant, something along those lines to cover up the exfiltration of whoever was in that house that they wanted or needed to protect. And then too, something that you brought up the other day that I found super interesting was the reference to The Princess Bride, because there's a lot of stuff in that movie. You need to watch it. She gets kidnapped in that movie. There's basically human trafficking in that movie. There are mercenaries in that movie. There's assassins in that movie. And then one of the main characters, Wesley, dies, but he's only mostly dead. So mostly dead. They're pretending these people are dead while they're in maybe police protective custody or witness protection. And it could explain some of the cryptic things that Steve G says. I paid that price. He lost his daughter into protective custody. She's not dead, but he lost his daughter. And until the case is over, or whatever this parallel FBI investigation is about is over, and then they can testify or whatever, and then come back to life after being mostly dead. I don't know. It just rings a lot of bells for me.
Well, I can tell you this, Bourbon Santa, I did not expect to give a top dog out to the first ever caller, but you did great. Thank you so much for popping up. See you in the chat.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Diamond, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me?
We are all good.
All righty. Well, it's going to be kind of tough to beat him, man. That was some great information. Well, I'm just going to kind of go into how I got into this case in the beginning because it's actually pretty scary. I am located near Detroit, Michigan, so nowhere near Idaho. However, the morning of, the 13th, my daughter, who was 12 years old at the time, came running into my room saying, Mom, you got to see these snaps that are going around on Snapchat. And so she showed them to me. They were snaps about 4 people in a house on the campus of Idaho University that died from a shooting.
Wait, when was this?
That was November 13th around 9 a.m.
In 2022.
Correct. The morning of the supposed murders. Yes.
And your daughter was like, how old was she? So
she was
college
12 years old.
What?
Yes. And we are in Michigan. And these snaps were going around and we could see them all the way here in Michigan. Now, being that she thought it was a school shooting at a college, I tried to calm her down because that's a big fear of hers. However, didn't think too much of it until I went to work the next morning and saw an article about the 4 students that were killed in a house off campus in Idaho, but then they said it was stabbings.
I wonder if it was a location story.
Yes, it was. It was on the stories. It wasn't personal people sending them to her, but when you can see other people's stories, that's where it was showing up.
Next up, we got Real Eyes Analyze. How you doing?
Hey, Birdie, how's it going? I don't believe this was some isolated case, 1 or 2 people. I find a lot of people are really taken up trying to protect the frats and the sororities. And I'm not going to sit here and blame a whole fraternity or sorority or anything, but I do believe that there were a few involved in this. And I do believe a lot more witnessed what happened. For me, it's the psychology, knowing that in fraternities, we know this happened in Greek Row. You have this mentality of this group mentality, they call it, right? So what happens is when they see something that happens, it tends to be their loyalty to the frats, the loyalty to the sororities. They will not say anything or not do anything because of their loyalty. And I do know that the way that they haze and things like that too, there's like that trauma bonding and things of that nature. And I know it almost seems off topic, but you have to go deep like that because you have to understand the psychology of these kids. I'm sure there are some that were seeing things, that saw a whole lot, that aren't saying anything because they feel a loyalty, but there's also that fear. So I do believe it's a combination of, and I've said this before, a vendetta and paraphernalia. I think this was a combination of both. I do believe that they were looking for something that night. The people who attacked the 4 of them. In the Lena Lane footage, you can absolutely hear it, and I had very clearly, and I'm a big skeptic on that kind of stuff. And I listened, you can hear them being questioned more than once. And you can hear a female asking questions, you can hear a male asking questions, where's the blah, blah, blah. I can't hear what they're asking for, but you can hear it. You can hear them asking, and you hear them say, I don't have them.
Bellamicia Mays is going to pop on up. Have I been saying your name right?
It's Bellamicia, yes, it is.
Bellamicia, okay.
And,
how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing great. I love what she just said. I've been following this literally since it happened and it was broadcast because I have grandchildren that are that age. And I got to get involved in the case by watching it every day. And at one point, I'm going to be very honest, I thought that Brian Koberger was just a mad killer. But then I have a background of being a paralegal for over 15 years. And I was looking at the things that they were doing in the courts that the attorney I worked for would have never done. And he was one of the top 10 criminal attorneys in the state of Texas. And I was just looking at this and I was thinking, what are they doing? And then it hit me. They were doing cover-ups. And I just feel that what she said about the fraternities, I feel like it really has something to do with the college. I have a theory. My theory is that Xana and Ethan were the first to be murdered. And while they were being murdered by a group of people in the house, I believe that Kaylee and Maddie came home. And that's why they were murdered. And I've also looked at the video that they have of the police. I've looked at all of the pictures. And one thing that really disturbs me is the lack of splatter, the lack of blood, because I have looked at a lot of cases where it was just one person and just a few stabs and there was blood everywhere. And you're supposed to expect me to believe that this young girl was stabbed over 54 times and there's not splatter in the hallway. There's not blood in the hallway. And I also hate the way that they cover for Dylan and Bethany, because there's no way that those 2 girls sat in that house and heard all of that and wasn't aware of what was going on. And no reasonable
with you there.
Yes, and no reasonable person would sit in their home and listen to people be murdered and not be afraid, not call the police. I just feel like none of the stories match up. And I believe that the cover-up comes from the college, from alumni, because someone's son did that goes to that college. And right now, him and his friends are sitting somewhere laughing because this man is in prison and they got away with it. And it's probably not the first thing they've ever gotten away with, because they're probably very entitled and coddled and coveted by their fathers. Because, I mean, if you think about it, they tore down the house. And then just 2 days ago, I found out that the district attorney told the lab that was doing DNA testing to get rid of the rest of the DNA. And I've never saw a case where they didn't keep DNA for further testing because of appeals.
Yeah. What gets young adults pissed off? Especially when you're male and your testosterone's flowing and you're going through that. It's you're fighting over a girl, right? I mean, it makes sense. And you're in a frat and you're getting shamed for having little nuts because you try to take steroids to get jacked. I don't know. Things can escalate. It might sound ridiculous. People might say, okay, Birdie, whatever. I'm just saying, if you take this case out of it and you heard that as a motive, would you really scratch your head that much for, wow, that's just crazy. Brandon, what's good?
I'm going to be pretty much the exact opposite of all of that. So to me, college kids couldn't have pulled this off without significant help. But I think we have two things here that I just simply can't get out of my mind. And that is, one, the college and just simply law enforcement in general, with all the gaps and all the things we're missing and all the truth that we're lacking, is by it as more and more comes out, it just seems by design. They weren't looking into everyone. It seems like it was just simply a cover-up by a law enforcement, by a university also telling them, figure this out. And I think that's kind of where this whole BK thing seems to come from, is that it's all by design, by trying to figure out a way out. Like they something got messed up somewhere in here, whether it's drugs, but I just can't wrap my mind around college kids pulling off this ninja type act. These gaps are missing for you on purpose because the design is so you can't figure it out.
I actually believe that, number one, Brian Koberger is completely innocent. I think that because of his degree and his knowledge and his brain power, he's obviously has a very high IQ, that it's possible that he could be working at this point for the FBI behind closed doors, because the prison he is in now is completely, has all the Aryan, as I understand it to be, the Aryan families and all of that, and perhaps he could do some good as far as evidence and all that. I think from day one, and I've never been an active follower of true crime ever. But when this dropped, I followed it from day one. And Truth and Transparency, I followed 100%. And I really began to understand a lot. And there's just no way. I think he was set up. And now a lot of the blood evidence is coming out with other players, and they won't disclose it or for some reason. And there's just more involved. I think that Moscow, Idaho is full of drugs. I think that it comes from Mexico up that road all the way to Seattle, Washington, and it has for a long time. And they drop in at all the universities they can, and they have the main players. Perhaps the house was where they kept the drugs, and kids came and bought the drugs from there. I don't know. And there's just no way he could have walked in there and slaughtered just with such vengeance those students. There is no way.
We got you.
Can you hear me? Hi. Yeah. So hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Cool. I joined not knowing there was like a prompt, and I do not have a theory
That's okay.
to float out there right now.
Do you have a general thought about the Idaho 4? You don't have to have a theory per se, but just what are your thoughts on it? Like when you heard about it, did you think it was Brian? What do you think now?
When I first heard about it, I was heavily invested, and it's like the same with the other girl that talked about, Kylie Rodney. I was very much into that case. And then when Idaho 4 happened, I became heavily invested, especially because he got arrested like less than an hour and a half from my house. So that was like really weird. But
Koberger did out in Pennsylvania, you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So at first I did think he was guilty, and then I just started deep diving, and I haven't stopped deep diving. Yeah. So I think he's innocent for sure. I cannot say like what I 100% think happened, but what I want to know is like, how long does everyone think that we're going to keep like deep diving it, and if we're ever actually going to get any answers? Because like, I don't know if we will.
What is going on, Z?
If this is not a psyop, then this is a crime that was highly organized many months before this happened. And there are plenty of people that are involved, but each of them had specific jobs to do. I'm not saying they're involved with the actual unaliving, but they all had a role to play. And some of them did it well, and some of them were not in sync, is what I think may have happened. But other than that, I think what rules this whole case is the narrative that somehow just they're sticking to that 4 a.m. timeline to make everything else work around it, whether it's because they saw a car in that time zone or that time period, or it's just that's what they first hit upon, that it was 4 a.m. when Dylan said these things. So after you see those, if you see that and you know that's not correct, it started to just unravel very quickly. And I think that there's so many things that are going wrong as soon as you, so many things that you can see that are wrong. As soon as you start with one that you figured out that makes more sense, you have to disregard everything else that you've uncovered and start again. So that gets a little frustrating. But for the most part, I believe that he's innocent. I don't think he was involved as a driver or a cleaner or any of that stuff. I don't understand why him. I think that maybe there's a possibility that they were, watching him and for some reason picked him, and they got his DNA from a traffic stop and they just put it on a sheet that they bought. The house itself, not that I want it to look bloody, but it does not look like a crime scene at all. It looks like a party house. It doesn't look like there's any, I don't want to sound gory, but there's no blood there. I mean, this should look like a Quentin Tarantino movie. It should have it everywhere. And when you see some of the, and they use blurring out photos to make you think that there is something there. And for the most part, I don't believe, for the most part, I don't think it happened there. I think it did happen outside. I don't think they were brought back in. I think they went directly to a medical examiner's office. I don't know how many people are involved in this or why they're involved in this. It just seems like when you start thinking of alternative theories, they make more sense than what we're given. And especially now when we just saw the two pictures of sheets, I don't know, one is bigger than the other, different color. I don't know if it's the lighting, but a sheet laying on a bed for 8 hours, it should be blood soaked, should have more than what they have on it. I just think that was, I don't even think it was planted because I don't even think it existed to be planted. I think it just was, if they want to take a picture or have something gone to a lab, then it would have just been a sheath that they bought, and they took a piece of DNA or cell or whatever from moving his hand, being arrested, or the traffic stops, because I think it happened. I'm not sure if it happened before or if it was during the time I know when he wasn't arrested, but that could have easily been put on anything and they called it a day. We can't trust them for anything. So, like anything else, a lot of people have different theories, but I think most of us on this Hive believe it's not what we're being sold for sure.
Great job, Z. Thank you so much for calling in. Next up, we have LA Mike.
Hey, Bertie, this is Pop. You got people talking about those frats still? I can't. Give me a break.
We didn't plan this, but I can tell you what, I would love to hear from Jay and Bree. And I don't know if you planned on doing the entire thing the same. Obviously, if you did, I know you. I know myself. We're doing this out of love.
Yeah, no, totally. No, I'm just messing around. No, man. So for me, I try to go back to square one and just back to the basics and how are crimes solved and how are they committed? And it's usually, 90% of the time done by family, friends, someone they're intimately close with. Two, it's usually the last person to see them alive, and then it's motive and opportunity and access. Screams Dylan. And then, it's kind of funny how she just kind of tries to lure everyone she knows over to the house, right? She got Hunter there and whoever else. And then it could be something as simple as Hunter Johnson, someone got upset and there was a fight and someone lost their mind. And, based on the wounds, it does seem like somebody just lost their mind and it was personal and they went crazy.
Freedom Fighter, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Bertie?
I'm doing well, brother. We got you loud and clear.
Hello to all the Hive there. Great. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.
Just got a few points. One, you can't help but agree with what everyone has said, right? About the sheath, if he had bought that in Pennsylvania, traveled all the way across the country with it, like how could his DNA not be on it, right? And then, in my opinion, and leading up to your first caller, I also had the same theory because I think it was Sherlock who brought up that Bethany and Dylan's windows were locked. So the ladder that was propped up there to access the second floor, I believe that someone had access to the windows as well, right?
I don't talk about the ladder very often. I know a lot of people do.
It's barely mentioned, yeah.
So, so you think they use that to get in through a window or
well,
escape?
It makes sense because I thought about like someone getting injured by having to flee, just like your first caller said, which was an amazing comment. So, but when you see the ladder there, when with I believe it was Sherlock, who is incredible as well. That all the other windows were unlocked or open. That they could have gained access to that, right? Well, that's the whole family. But yeah, just and the fact that the whole timeline revolves around Dylan's input and theory, right? Is just because we just don't know what to believe, right? So.
Well, I think that's good. So what do you think your overall theory is? You still got about a minute and a half here. What do you think, what would you say your overall theory is, Freedom Fighter?
I'm all over the place like everyone else, right? I think this is a house of cards that goes way up. Lack of blood. I really don't have a theory. I don't believe he was involved at all.
And next up, we have Les. Les,
Hey,
are you
Birdie.
there? Oh, you're there. How are you doing?
I'm here. Good, good. Hey, I wanted to talk about the Gonsalves family right now because one thing that I've been very frustrated with, well, I've been frustrated with them forever, but Olivia, I wonder if she's just so loyal to her father and like she doesn't want to go against him. Just because I've had conversations with her on TikTok, I know Booking with B talks to her, and I've seen her argue facts like in her TikToks, like, no, there was no other male DNA on the back of that sheath, and they were sleeping. And we know they weren't sleeping. I mean, even Dylan said Kaylee was dancing with Murphy and then she ran up the stairs. I just don't understand what that's about. Like, is she trying to steer us wrong or does she really believe that? I think that Steve is always known. I'm not sure about Christy. I don't think, I mean, she's too heartbroken. I just think that they just believe Steve, and I believe he's always known. And I believe he makes blunders. A lot of his stuff is like word salad. And I don't know. I can't tell if he's trying to give us hints. Maybe he's afraid for his family, like to all be attacked, or for himself. I can't tell with him. I don't know. I think what really got me was at the sentencing, and the statements they gave were just so crazy, and calling him a pedo, and again saying that he attacked them in their sleep. It was just like, I'm like, are they that delusional, or are they just trying to sell it that hard? I think that when people over explain, they're lying. Like in the Kylie Rodney case, as Caleb and I have talked about a million times. Yeah. They over
Okay.
explain, they got something to hide. Liars just throw in a bunch of random things that don't matter.
Next up, we got Terry Martin. Terry, how are you doing? I got you loud and clear here.
I'm trying to figure out why Brian pled. What's your
You
thought?
and many others. If I look through a very normal case lens,
Mhm.
I think it's a long-term legal strategy. You want to get the death penalty off the table. Maybe you feel like you got railroaded in your county, in the courtroom that you're in, and you're going to rely on post-conviction relief.
Okay.
Then there's my tinfoil hat lens, right? And everybody in here knows what I mean by that, which is whether it be Operation Cover Story, they're going to witsec his ass, who knows? So I guess I would also then refer that question to you. Why do you think?
Okay. Let's go back to when I sent you Sean Atwood.
Yep.
What did he say? Nobody had anything on him. And 92% pled with
It's a huge
nothing
statistic.
on them. Because if they went to trial, it would cost money. And they would be pretty much already going to be found guilty.
Terry had sent me this interview of Sean Atwood. He was actually in a prison, holding cell area, if this is the same one you're talking about, but I believe this is what he said it. It refers to almost dead on what Brian Koberger has talked about in his papers. And what is a reality of our justice system. I have to fully transparently say, I had no idea that 90+% of cases never went to trial and settled in a plea. I had no idea. I actually would have not chosen that in a multiple choice question. I would have guessed maybe 35 to 45%. What would you have said?
Me?
Yeah, personally, like before this case.
Oh my God. I mean, nothing in the 90 percentile. That's what was waiting for him.
The next person that's going to be coming up for the Hive Mind call-in show is going to be M. Stokes. I just added them to the stage. How are you doing?
Hi, Birdie. Can you hear me?
You are loud and clear.
Okay. My question is about Officer Rosie and Kaylee's rumored romance. How much would it take for that to be pushed up beyond rumor into an actual item that could be factored into the case?
Well, I can tell you from what my gut instinct tells me is that if there was a pretty college girl sleeping with a local cop on a college campus that's in that city, I think that rumor would spread like wildfire. You know what I mean? And where does that just come from? Is kind of my thought on most rumors. Is that what you were asking, or?
Well, I'm saying that I've been hearing that from different sources, not from just Dot, but I had heard that along the way from a lot of sources, and I'm even thinking that Paul may have inferred that he was dropped off in one of the cars that was dropped off and then picked up on that night there. So I'm just wondering, is this just a distraction? Is it a nothing burger? Is it something that anyone's considering to be a major factor in the actual case? And that's all I have to ask about it.
So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna bring Lisa up, and Lisa is now on the stage. How are you doing?
So everyone had such great points. I'm not going to go over what we already know to be facts in the case, but to get this out to the masses so our mothers and brothers and family and friends don't think we're crazy, I think Court TV just had one day ago, they had their live show. And basically they're saying the reason why Koberger is getting so much money in donations, which he should be able to afford his restitution in the recent filings, that all these girls have fetishes with Brian Koberger as his women and men in prison. And that's basically, we know that to be false, who are really donating to him, right? I'm sure it's men and women and has nothing to do with wanting to know him that way. And I think that's your end. Turtle Boy did it. You can too.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, Lisa White. And, I'm very surprised that Turtle Boy can look at the Karen Reed case and go that granular, and he can't do it with this case, amongst many other people that are creators and think very critically, right? I don't know how you can cover Diddy, or if you can cover Epstein, or if you can cover, many other cases that might not be what we're being told. Yet this one, I don't know I have no idea.
And the last thing I'll say is I live in Idaho. I'm from a small farm town that's very close to Moscow. My dad was a veterinarian in that town. And I can tell you he was also the deputy coroner when the only other coroner was out of town. And I have a lot of information to say that, but Idaho is very, the Masonic Lodge, temples, like all those things need to be looked into.
Next up, we got Vonda.
Oh my God.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Vonda.
Oh, I hope I'm not too loud.
Oh, you're perfect.
So anyway, I have a degree in criminal justice and another degree in paralegal, and I've always been interested in true crime. And I even wrote a paper in college about the death penalty and wrongful convictions. And what startles me about this case really is the amount of video evidence that we have seen and the lack of video evidence that clearly identifies Brian Kohlberger. There is no video that definitively identifies his car, him in the car, his license plate, any distinguishing marks. And Ann Taylor also asked for CCTV video that was confiscated that probably could have shown a better view if her client was, in fact, the suspect, and they mysteriously lost that video footage. And that came out in the hearings.
We have we have two people that have said now, we'd love to read your paper. Can I back up to that point? When you wrote about that and then you saw Brian's papers, or maybe you heard about that, did it reflect very similar statistics? I mean, are you taught about the amount of cases that do settle in a plea deal, or is that something you'd have to research?
So when I first, I went to college at the age of 35 and graduated with honors at the age of 40. So I'm pretty old. But my college professors always remarked, I started my college journey as a just law and order, black and white. If you did it, if you're accused, then that's it, you go away. And I evolved over time where I saw the whole picture, where I took every class, and I ended up writing a paper, which I never thought I would, on um, the abolishing the death penalty because of all of the people who have been wrongly convicted and sentenced to death. There were cases where I read like the transcripts of cases where you have to have an experienced capital case attorney on your team with experience. There were cases where people were convicted and sentenced to death where the person who was the experienced criminal capital murder lawyer was sleeping during the whole trial, and a newly
literally,
graduated law student was representing the defendant.
Like actually asleep.
Yes, actually asleep. It was in the court records.
What?
And yes, and it was overturned. Eventually ended up being overturned, but I couldn't believe what I was reading. And there were many cases where Eyewitness testimony was found to be false. I also have I passed the state license exam for private investigation, and it was amazing how one of the tests they gave us was this is kind of funny. You watch the bank robbery scene from Point Break with Keanu Reeves, and half of the class was treated as witnesses and the other half were investigators. So everyone watched the video clip of the bank robbery scene in Point Break, and then they came back together and the investigators asked the witnesses, so how many bank robbers were there? What were they dressed as? And just basic questions. You wouldn't believe there were a million different answers. No one agreed and everyone watched the same video. It was incredible.
Next up on stage is Taylor. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for
This
calling
this
in.
is the Olipop SpongeBob hater.
Oh no.
So I know I was watching your live last night, and I know you guys like had some questions about like the 911 dispatcher sounding different, and kind of questioning if it was the same one. And I saw a couple people in chat who were 911 dispatchers.
Yep.
I can't even speak. I'm so nervous.
Don't be nervous. You're good.
Along
You're
with
good.
me, and just wanted to clarify that like the person that was speaking to Dylan and everybody else, there is somebody else that's working that is going over the radio and kind of paging that out to get the information out. So it likely was not the same person. So like when you're in dispatch and you're taking a call, you type in, there's like a system on the computer. So you type in whether it's unconscious, if it's a stroke, if it's a seizure, and it gives you prompts to follow and read to the caller. So that's probably why she was saying defibrillator, because it'll be like, do you have a defibrillator? Do you have AED? Do you have this, that, and the other? And it's giving you prompts to read off.
Wow.
So it's not like she's just like coming up with that from her head just like that. It's prompts.
All right, next up we got Red Man.
My main theory is that all of them had quit the frat houses except for Ethan, and Ethan was like out of it because of his grades. Correct?
That is a common denominator. And then the survivors, correct me if I'm wrong, they were both in it.
Exactly. And so, but what really boggles my mind is all of these suspect people, like all the people at the grub truck. There has to be a connection with all these suspect kids because there's too many of them. But I do think that there were multiple people that did this. I don't think that it was just a couple of people. I think there were a lot of people involved in this. And I also believe that Dylan, I don't know why, but I just have this feeling that Dylan, I mean, somebody had to be in charge of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so confusing.
Next up, we got Kelly is the man. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put Kelly is the man up on stage. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Birdie.
All right. You're loud and clear.
Roll Tide.
There you go.
How do you get that one in there?
I love that.
Nobody's mentioned this, but in the stuff that's come out about all of the blood work and the testing on the blue powder.
Say that again.
The blue powder on the desk in Xana's room was Adderall.
Okay.
And that test was confirmed by the lab work. And my thought on that was Molly. Because the dollar bills rolled up, the powder was crushed. She was there 15 minutes prior to 4 o'clock. That gave Xana time to get the Adderall, crush it on the desk. Also gave Dylan time to get Molly's contact number as the person who would be able to bring the Adderall to the house.
I'm going to say like the F word, right? FENT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is that? A 15-minute full effect? Maybe probably quicker when you're snorting it.
Yeah.
So what if everybody did think they were just railing an Adderall?
And it was laced.
That's what I mean.
I think the Jack in the Box part is the way
Hang on. What do you have to say to offline JJ that says people do not snort Adderall?
It says that in the transcripts that Dylan saw her doing that.
It takes 2 seconds. Okay. Let's just be honest. It takes no time. So to act like this would be some giant process, if you got, a DoorDash order or whatever, and there's a Ziploc baggie with, 5-10 milligram Adderalls in it, it would literally take no time.
And it's I mean, all the walking around with the flashlight, Molly parking behind the house. Easily, Susanna could have come out the back door and they could have done the trade right there in the back.
Spitfire Mother, what up?
I also have a question about Molly. Molly definitely has something to do with this.
Sherlock, what's going on?
This is a lone wolf, says the state. And, you know, as far as they know, one murder weapon, histochemical forensics. Basically, what that means is it's a type of cell forensics where you can use blood cells to determine what order people died in. You know, if there's one perp and one knife, like they're saying, you can use that methodology in forensics. They do it all the time to solve crimes. Basically, the way it works is blood cells have a high concentration of cells. So you can use this method to basically find the victim's blood cells in each other's wounds, right? So if there's one perp and one knife, then the blood DNA of victim 1 will be in the wounds of victim 2. And the blood DNA of victims 1 and 2 will be in the wounds of victim 3, and so on and so forth. And you can figure out who died first, so on and so forth. And yeah, I mean, that's the kind of forensics that I would talk about. Like, why didn't they do that? You know, they're claiming it's one person, over 100 stab wounds, 4 victims. Why would you not do histochemical cell transfer forensics? And they didn't do any of that. So, you know, that's, for me, that's the big red pill thing.
Next up, we got Thumper, formerly, I can't see the full nickname, but you are on mute, just so you know. So unmute, and then you're going to be good to go.
Hi, Bertie.
How
Love
are you
your
doing?
channel, by the way. I'm doing all right.
Good,
I
thank you.
have a theory about this. Somebody was speaking about the common denominator. Well, the common denominator is the college. That's where I want to start, is with college. Okay, Steve G, did he go to that college or not?
Yes.
Okay, Steve G. The words that stick to me the most with Steve G is I paid that price.
In his text messages that we looked over the other day, he said like almost everybody involved is a part of the college. So I think the denominator point you bring up, if you want to continue, it's valid for sure.
And then he said, you know, he paid that price. He bought that casket. Okay. These are the two things that stick in my mind. I cannot get rid of them and I cannot shake it. But it's something to do, I believe, with somebody in the college.
All right. Next up, we got Ginger Peoples.
Have you heard of the Crandon shooting in 2007? And a police officer massacred a bunch of kids at a homecoming party.
Holy
and this,
shit.
I know, I cannot believe that you did not hear this.
I have
but
never heard of this.
one of the girls that actually was murdered was having this relationship with one of the police officers. The police officer that was having a relationship with this girl, he's the one that murdered all these kids at this homecoming party. And I'm like, wow, the Idaho 4, this totally reminds me of this case. And with Kaylee, because I'm thinking, what if she was having this relationship with one of these cops? What if it's not as complicated as what we are all thinking? There has to be, like that one girl, you know, chimed in and said, you know, there has to be a connection somewhere for these kids to end up, you know, murdered.
Next up, we got Mary Lou.
I don't know if I necessarily have theories. I have more or less things that I believe are facts. I believe they were shot. I believe there's drugs involved. And I believe things that actually you have proven with the audios, the videos. I'm obsessed with this. I've been following you forever. I think I started following you on TikTok and then came here.
Love that. Thank you.
And one question I have, I guess this is a question. Why did they tear down the house before a trial? And why did they bury it? I've never heard of burying a house.
I think that's a great take. And thank you so much, Mary Lou, for not
Thank
only being
you.
an OG Hiver from TikTok, but also
Yes.
following us over here. And thank you for the call. And I hope you have a great night.
You were awesome. I love you guys.
All right. Thank you so
Bye.
much, Mary Lou. Bye-bye. All right. We got Fiji on stage. What's going on, Fiji? Good to see you. When I came over to YouTube, amongst a handful of others, so I'm actually really honored to have Bubbly up here on stage as a caller. So I'm going to go ahead and add Bubbly here. How are you doing?
Hey, hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
We got you loud and clear.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you for popping up.
Sure. So I want to ask you a question. How come you haven't delved into the EcoShield?
As far as the company that a bunch of people have allegedly worked for or not worked for.
Well, yeah, if they work at all, right? That type of work you
Right.
mean? I mean, they're there, but just what do they do? I don't know.
Well, and so I've heard that come up, and Bobby, we could take, just because this will be the last call, and I know you got a plethora of information. Not saying that anybody else in here doesn't, but just for the last call, it's a great topic. I've always heard this Echo Shield, the Echo Shield, from people that really have been into the weeds since day one. So can you give a little background on that for people that might not know?
Well, from what I can tell, it is possibly set up through the university. It's really the owners. It's kind of, you're trying to find those. I mean, they're kind of here and there, but it's kind of like almost a franchise. They each are different from each state and city or wherever they pop up at. But it's a pest control, so it's basically the stuff to spray on whatever you want to spray it on to get rid of it, and it's supposedly safe for animals and for humans. And if you want to go look at the Better Business Bureau, you'll find out that that is not the case, and that they also charge what they want and don't give you. I mean, they just keep on charging you, even though you back out of it or whatever. And they're
Do you
very
think
they
it's a
pressure a
front?
lot. What's that?
Do you think that it could be like a front company?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well, not to
mean,
mention that all the people over there, they're teaching them how to fly planes and all that kind of stuff. We know about 3 or 4 of them I know for sure have gotten their pilot's license since they've been there. And so
eh,
Jack Showalter was there.
yep.
Mason was there. There's but 3 or 4 of the guys that are doing the DNA tests that are EcoShield guys. That's pretty odd.
And do you know, so with kind of saying like, okay, so if the campus, and Bubbly, you might know more. You probably do know more. But my thought is like, what is the intro to this company for these kids? Is it a career fair? Is it who has the ties that could hire them?
I thought at first that it was the elite, the rich ones, or the ones that, because there's one of them in there now with his brother who is heavily into the legislate. I mean, big time. Like he's up there. And and then there's a couple other guys. But what I've boiled it down to is I think they're the troublemakers. I think they're the ones that have gotten in trouble, and I think they ship them like a ranch, like the little tough love type things. I almost feel like that's what they do. Now you work your asses off for this amount of time, and then of course we're going to give you this. We're going to give you a place to stay, and we'll feed you and stuff. But you're going to work your butt off for whatever you make, and then you go back to school for how many months, and you're going to be good. You're going to get your grades. You're going to do what you're supposed to do, and you're going to come out of this on top, right? Now that's just, I mean, that's part of my speculation. I mean, it's there's so many avenues when it comes to this. It's tough.
I agree. And so can you, for the sake of this call, knowing that we can go down a bunch, if there's anybody that knows that we can go down a bunch of alleys, it's not only people that have looked into this from day one, but also just the conspiracy enthusiasts like myself. So it's like with this company. So let's say it is the tough love camp. They get sent off, they go there, they work. They're like, hey, you're going to be given this, primo territory, making 6 figures, whatever it is. You just got to put your time in, whatever it may be. Can you now tie this back into not just the cover up, not just the people involved, but like maybe how the murders are staying quiet per se?
Well, I believe it's basically an umbrella for the company that Kaylee was going to work for. So whatever Kaylee knew could possibly.
And Echo Shield is in Texas. They have a place there.
Texas, Arizona, San Diego, they're all of their franchise, but mainly the guys from the U of I, they hang out there where Kaylee was going to be. Yeah.
Man. So can I ask you this? I know this is the first time that we've chatted, like I said, but in general, I would love to, co-host a stream with you, as you have been somebody that I've watched and that I've learned a lot from. But in general, if you had to sum up a theory, like a barstool pitch, an elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it, where it comes down to like who, what, where, when, and why, in a minute or less. If somebody said, I don't know shit about the Idaho 4, what are you telling them?
I tell them, though, you want your head to spin and fly off your shoulders for it. I literally could not sum it up, because I'm telling you, I've been in that position before. I mean, last year I went to a Thanksgiving supper, and one of the girls there, she was a nurse at Wazoo, and she literally she knew nothing about it. All she knew was that this guy was in jail. I mean, they knew nothing about him. They thought he's guilty of sin. I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. And it's crazy.
I don't know if you have how many of the Hive streams you've tuned into, but in the summertime, like Mrs. Birdie and I, we'll go up north, and there was this group of people that rents out the cabin next door, and there was like 20 of us, and it just so happened to kind of be around like the random plea hearing, and we were talking about this. I'm okay with sounding like a psycho, but it's also a little bit intimidating around strangers in person when they have no idea about anything else. No documents, no nothing. They're going off of Amazon. They're going off of Dateline. It's rather terrifying for people like me and you and people in here to think about. This is a world stage case. Can you imagine if this was in a small town? And I don't know about what motivates you to keep diving into this other than like the truth, but I always think about like it could literally be any of us. And the headlines F you.
Well, I know Idaho because I was born there. So I
Okay, I
understand.
didn't know that.
Yeah. And I mean, I moved away at a younger age, but thank God. But yeah, I know about all those little things that people talk about, like the tunnels and the lead and all that stuff. That's true. That is absolutely true. Now, with that said, it might not be tunnels everywhere underneath everything, but it's a mining state. There's mines everywhere, and there are holes in mountains. There's holes in hills. There's freaking old. I mean, we were told when we were younger in the fields, don't play in this area because there's a well that's in the ground that you could fall into, or don't go over here. And another thing that we were told is to watch out for people who try to get us to go in a car or whatever. Even when I at that young age, that was 50 years ago, and we were warned about the abduction. So it's not something new at all.
So
and just imagine that many years on top of that, how strong that has become and how easy it's become for, with the social media.
Idaho really is a portal to hell, isn't it, Bubbly?
Yeah,
It's
pretty
been a
much.
portal to hell.
That's how
And
it feels.
Steve G wasn't lying when he said it's time to put Idaho on the map. If anything, he just like spawned a giant crosshair onto Idaho of this is a giant portal to a bunch of nefarious BS.
Yeah, the sleeve stack came up from underneath the ground.
Oh my God. Well, thank you for popping up last minute. Bubbly, I got to get you on the stream in general. Cheers, everybody.